You know what's terrifying is your brain doesn't care what's real, it only cares what's repeated. If you tell a lie to a child enough times, they'll believe it. If you replay a wound or trauma enough times, it'll become your identity and part of your personality. So if you've spent your whole life hearing, you're not enough, it's never gonna work, be realistic, we'll never be able to afford that, I want you to understand something very clearly. You were never the problem, the program was. And today we're going to talk about how to override the code that they wrote in your mind and how to replace it with one you actually deserve. Hey you guys, I'm Christian, and my mission is to show you how to alchemize pain into power, fear into faith, wounds into wisdom, and shadows into self-mastery. When I was younger, they saw too dramatic, too sensitive, too different. Growing up queer in environments that didn't understand me meant that my dreams were treated like something ridiculous. Wanting more was ungrateful, and being loud and boisterous and expressive was seen as attention seeking, and having big dreams to inspire the world was seen as delusional. Maybe you were also told things like, who do you think you are? You're not that different or that special. It'll never work out anyway because it's so hard. And when you hear those lines enough times from parents or friends or family or teachers, your brain doesn't sit there and say, okay, this is low self-worth projection, I reject that. No, your brain quietly internalizes the new code and it starts to think, I am too much. I'm not enough. My dreams are unrealistic. Not because it's true, but because it's what's been repeated to you. What no one told us growing up is that our mind is like a computer. It doesn't fact check the truth. It simply downloads whatever program has been installed into it. If every day you're around people who feed you shame and criticism and doubt and limiting beliefs and comparison, especially when you're vulnerable as a child, your mind is going to internalize that, it's going to save it, it's going to run it, and it's going to repeat it. That's what happened to me. I literally would repeat every insult, every argument, every backhanded comment, and replay it in my mind and didn't realize that I was manifesting my own perception of myself and the world around me from their limiting views and not my own. I think what hurts the most is that if you don't consciously make an effort to choose what's repeated in your mind, your loudest and deepest wound will do it for you. Let me ask you something, and I want you to be brutally honest with me right now. Whose voice is actually running your mind right now? Is it that teacher that embarrassed you in front of your whole class? The parent that made you feel like a burden when you were expressing your needs? That ex that told you that no one's ever going to love you the way they will? Or that friend that gets uncomfortable when you start shining too brightly? We've all been there. Because if you still shrink when you speak, and if you still downplay your dreams, and if you still think it's cringe to be visible online, you're not lazy or undisciplined or shy. You're repeating a story that was never yours to begin with. Now, this was the perspective shift that changed everything for me, okay? I am not my first programming. I am the one who chooses the next update. Let me say that again. I am not my first programming. Parents, teachers, friends, childhood, family. I am the one who chooses the next update. In my 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, I am in control. I choose the next update. You are not the original script. You are the author of version 2.0, 3.0, 3.8, 36.4, 78.5, as many times as you're brave enough to rewrite it. Your brain's only job is to normalize whatever you experience or think and repeat it. So if you grew up in chaos, chaos feels normal. If you grew up in emotional neglect, being ignored feels normal. If you grew up around narcissistic behavior, walking on eggshells feels normal. Normal and natural are not the same thing, and familiar and aligned are not the same thing. It's like you were brought up and conditioned in an environment that didn't know how to hold your light and your radiance and your power. And then you grew up to blame yourself for dimming it. And while dimming it was not your responsibility, reprogramming and reigniting your light and your flame and your power is. So, how we do this is by imagining and visualizing and embodying a version of ourselves that didn't internalize the limiting beliefs projected onto us, who grew up in a reality where their sensitivity was a superpower, where their dreams were encouraged, where their queerness or uniqueness or difference was celebrated instead of shamed. How would that version of you think? How would they move? How would they talk to themselves after a bad day? Because that version of you already exists in some timeline, and your job is to repeat the beliefs of that identity until this timeline catches up. Your brain doesn't care if it's repeating the voice of the wound or your higher self. It normalizes whichever one you choose. So let's make sure the next thing you repeat about yourself is actually worthy of the person you're becoming. Repeat the new beliefs so loudly, so ferociously, so consistently, and so undeniably that your brain has no choice but to surrender. Like I said, you are not your first programming. You're not your second, you're not your third, you're not your fourth. You are the one who chooses every single next update. So choose wisely. You guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope this helped you the way it's helped me completely transform my life over my limiting beliefs. Be sure to subscribe and let me know what kind of content you want more of. And follow me on Instagram at Chris the Vathison.